This podcast is brought to you by www.fearcreep.tk. For more great horror content, visit Fear Creep today and share it with your friends. You can even like us on Facebook.
It had been a horrible accident. Crippling her for the rest of her life, Charlotte's legs would never work again. But her crutches held her up at least. She actually didn't mind the crutches. What she hated was the staring and the gossiping, and what she hated more was the ballet class. Charlotte had loved it ever since her parents had taken her at a young age, and had dreamed of being on stage one day performing. But now it would never come true. So she sat on the sidelines, watching girls who made fun of her do the things they both knew she'd never accomplish, and it killed her inside. The blonde was the worst, a perky, bubbly upper-class girl named Tristan. She had the most beautiful, slender legs, and was the best student in the class. Nimble and majestic, Charlotte had heard the instructor say at one point or another. Yes, Tristan had everything a man could want, and all the talent to get whatever she wanted. Was she deserving of it? Absolutely not. Not only was she rude to Charlotte, but she was an overall mean person. And yet her legs hadn't been broken. And she had dozens of friends and suitors and was at the top of the class, leading them in practice. It was getting closer to the main performance, the one of Swan Lake. It was the biggest one at the school every year, and the girl picked to be the main character was always showered with praise and affection. And, of course, nobody was surprised when it turned out to be Tristan. She wasn't nice about that either, no. She boasted and bragged, showing off the slip, informing her that she had been picked from a dozen other girls from competing classes at the school. Charlotte just sat alone, watching Tristan mock her, making sneering faces at her and waving the paper around, as if shouting to the world, "The handicapped girl is jealous, and I am the best." And the worst part was, there was nothing Charlotte could do about it. The night arrived. The girls and boys all dressed for their big show, the proud parents and onlookers seated in the huge school theatre, awaiting the arrival of the great production of Swan Lake. She was late, but nobody would say a word. They were too afraid. They just stood back and let the music start and let her begin to dance, as the crowd watched in shock and amazement. She moved like never before, flowing like they'd never seen, graceful and majestic, just as the teacher had said. And she had her legs to thank for it. She wasn't a bad student. She'd practiced all night long, and had studied for weeks at home. And when the opening song ended, and the spotlight illuminated her, she stood, out of breath, beaming out towards the crowd, who were in a state of complete shock. Yes, Charlotte had learned to dance in one evening, had studied for weeks before, and it had been so easy in the end. All she had to do was go in quietly, knock her out, and make a few large cuts. And a few stitches later, she'd made herself a new girl, a dancer. And all it took were the legs. At least now Tristan would know how it felt to be the crippled one, and Charlotte got to do the one thing she'd always wanted, dance. Everyone had been right. Tristan did have great legs.